Yeah, I thought it would be, first of all, disingenuous if I didn't write about the transition out of my marriage, because people knew it had happened to me, and it happens to, unfortunately, a lot of families.
The next day, transitions, change, and moving forward. This is the new book by Melinda Gates, the heiress and former wife of billionaire, cartoonishly evil billionaire, Bill Gates. Hello, this is Alex, your host of the Doomed Planet podcast, episode 125, Fake Feminist, Melinda Gates.
Podcast, shout out.
There's a new podcast locally in Seattle called The Burner, and run by, I think, former Stranger journalist Hannah Krieg. And on their April 28th episode, they talk a little bit about how Melinda Gates came to the Paramount Theater in Seattle to get interviewed by Reese Witherspoon. And they're calling her out saying, how can you claim to help women while donating to PACs that fought the capital gains tax, Melinda? And specifically in Washington State, she fought that tax. Much of the money from that tax was earmarked to go to childcare, which, guess what, would have helped women. So who is Melinda Gates, and how gross is their family? Looking at the New York Times list of recent Melinda French Gates articles, Bill Gates can remove Melinda French Gates from the foundation in 2 years. That's from 2021. And then 2024, Melinda French Gates to resign from the Gates Foundation. I've mentioned on this podcast before, but of course, she divorced Bill for multiple reasons, mostly because of Jeffrey Epstein, the association there, which her lawyers, again, I've mentioned this, they leaked all this stuff to the New York Times right when the divorce was announced. Going back to 2019, when all was rosy with Bill and Melinda, the Bill-Melinda Gates romance started with a rejection. She recounts her evolution to feminist in her new memoir by Nicholas Kristof. And of course, that's her previous book called The Moment of Lift, and which is the same sort of self-indulgent garbage full of trite cliches as her new book. Here's a good one. June 20th in the New York Times, Melinda French Gates says she will vote for Biden. She avoided endorsements in the past, saying they could compromise her philanthropic work with politicians. With what? So, alternate headline for what is Der Stürmer for Zionists, the New York Times. Alternate headline here, Melinda French Gates says she will vote for genocide. And of course, it was just revealed that Genocide Joe never once pressured Netanyahu, despite the lies of all the Democrats, including AOC, saying that they were negotiating as hard as they could. They did nothing. Opinion by Melinda French Gates. Now, if you're rich, you can just get into the newspaper. You call them up and say, I have an opinion about something. Okay, we'll print it. Normal people don't have that privilege, obviously. Melinda French Gates. The enemies of progress play offense. I want to help even the match. A philanthropist is focusing on gender issues. Okay, here's the big play here. Not that she fought the capital gains tax, not that she and her husband had this pledge to give away all of their fortune, which they have not done, together or separately. It's that being a billionaire is an anti-feminist concept, okay? If you have $1,000 million that you are hoarding, that money is not going to women, okay? It's not. And okay, she's doling out little bits of philanthropy here and there, or large bits of the money she did not earn that Bill Gates gave her. Okay, fine. What is she making up for being married to a Satanist all these years? May 3rd, 2021. Okay, that's the bombshell going back in time. Bill and Melinda Gates are divorcing after 27 years of marriage. The announcement raises questions about the fate of their fortune. The couple helped create the Giving Pledge, but much of his Microsoft money has not yet been donated. July 28th, New York Times. Melinda Gates is ready to take sides. She's turning 60, striking out on her own, and getting political. Okay? Okay, this most recent How Gross Is This Family New York Times article occurred April 24th. In the style section, another Gates gets wired in. Phoebe Gates, the youngest and most stylish of Bill and Melinda Gates' children, steps into the spotlight as a founder of a new online shopping tool. This is some useless website that scours the web for fashion deals or something. I would love to do a deep dive into this article. It was so gross, but she's sitting around with some of her wealthy friends one day, like, how can we be entrepreneurs? And one of their earlier ideas, I'm not making this up, was a Bluetooth connected tampon that would monitor hormone levels. And then they were like, oh, ha, 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 that's stupid. Let's do this fashion website. You know, it's honorable to be an entrepreneur, especially if you're female, because it's a man's world in every department. But if you are a member of the Gates family, nothing you do is being an entrepreneur, okay? Bill and Melinda finalized their divorce. What does the divorce mean for the Gates Foundation? Melinda, of course, recently left $5 billion in annual grants to 135 countries. It's like a privately run U.S. aid where they're meddling in every fucking country in the world. All right, so the next day, we're going to read part of it. That's going to be gross. But first, the moment of lift. If you look on Amazon, there's a lot of different unauthorized Melinda Gates books. The Unconventional Life of Melinda Gates by Umwa Chima. Okay, yeah, that's really unconventional to like come from a wealthy family, marry a rich guy, and then divorce him and take half his money. Yeah, I've never heard of that. The Moment of Lift. I believe this came out recently, 2021. 4.6 out of 5 stars with 8,000 ratings on Amazon. War criminal and former President Barack Obama says, Melinda tells the stories of the inspiring people she's met through her work all over the world. She digs into the data. From marriage to gender inequity in the workplace. You know what gender inequity in the workplace is? When the foundation is named after you and your husband, but he's the one that made the fortune. You just were working at his company and slept with him and then convinced him to marry you. I mean, that's worth some money, but is it worth $70 billion? The Moment of Lift is an urgent call to courage. Vulnerable, brave storytelling, says Brené Brown, PhD, and author of the best-selling, also self-help trash book, Dare to Lead. Melinda Gates has spent many years working with women around the world. Her book is a lesson in listening. This is like AI-generated trite truisms and stuff boring people say. When you lift up women, you lift up humanity. Really? That's incredible. Who came up with that? Gates is on a mission to find solutions for people with the most urgent needs. Bro, if that were the case, you would have given away 100% of your money. For the first time, she writes about her personal life and finding her voice. Okay, and again, this is the earlier book, Moment of Lift. And now, as painful as this may be, released on April 15th, 2025, mere days ago, the #1 new release in success and self-help on Amazon and an instant New York Times bestseller the next day. Transitions, change, and moving forward. And away from Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Gates and a lot of other fucking creeps that are worse human beings than you are, if that is possible.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Chop Mart, America's guillotine superstore. A rare window into some of her life's pivotal moments. You don't get to be my age without navigating all kinds of transitions, says Melinda French Gates. And again, she just turned 60. Most women, when they turn 60, don't get to publish a book about how important that is. Some changes you hoped for and some you fought as hard as you could. I'm guessing that's, I don't want to divorce Bill. I'll do anything. But this Jeffrey Epstein thing, I guess that's a step too far, and it's making me look bad at cocktail parties. Transitions are moments in which we step out of our familiar surroundings and into a new landscape. Yeah, right. It's going to be, being a billionaire all these decades is a familiar surrounding. I just want to leave it all behind and go to a Motel 6 and live on $100 a week. For many people, this is shadowed by confusion, fear, and indecision. Yeah, for many people that don't have billions of dollars, maybe leaving their abusive husband who's friends with Jeffrey Epstein is harder than you think, and they're trapped. But not Melinda, who has empowered womankind with her generalities and cliches and doling out money to those she deems worthy of her magical charity. In this book, Melinda will reflect, for the first time in print, on some of the most significant transitions in her own life. What about the previous book, which was described as the same thing? Becoming a parent. Guess what, Melinda? A lot of people do that. They don't get to write a book about what a transition that is. The death of a dear friend. Yeah, we've experienced that. Well, you're so unique. And her departure from the Gates Foundation. This is universal. When you leave the foundation, the multi-billion-dollar foundation that's named after you, when you depart from that foundation, we all have experienced that. We've all have been in that jackpot, baby. The stories she tells illuminate universal lessons about, okay. As painful as this may be, listeners, I'm going to open up the free sample of this fucking book on Kindle, and let's just briefly go through it. But again, Melinda Gates is a monster. The recent article about one of her daughters in the New York Times was nausea-inducing. Her ex-husband is this sick fuck who, again, I've said it a million times, keep your first few billion and then make all those products open source so that public schools are not spending their money giving it to Microsoft for something Microsoft, for a shitty product, by the way, no matter what it is, but something Microsoft created long ago and is now just collecting rent from. It's like they're the landlord of their digital realm of greed. Okay, now I'm sounding as trite as Melinda saying stupid phrases like that. Okay, the cover of this book looks like it was designed by an intern at an assisted living facility to advertise a bingo night. It is terrible. The next day, and then there's this branch, this twig with some budding sprouts on it. Transitions, change, and moving forward is in cursive. Typography, not great for a billionaire. And getting published by a large publishing house. Dedicated to mom and dad. There's a quote from Mary Oliver's The Journey to start out the book. There was a new voice which you slowly recognized as your own as you strode deeper. Oh boy. Introduction. I never expected to be writing a book like this. Then again, there's a lot that's happened in my life over the last few years that I didn't see coming. Like Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein, man, ruined it for everybody.
Melinda French Gates is opening up about her divorce from Bill Gates for the first time.
I think it's really important to say, look, I had a lot of tears for many days. I mean, days where I'm literally laying on the floor in the carpet, this close to me, thinking, how can this be? How can I get up?
I'm writing this at a moment of transition, a moment when one chapter has come to a close, but the next has not yet begun. If you're a billionaire, you can hire the best ghostwriters. She's obviously never been a writer, but this is like going to cliches.com and typing in, clicheai.com and typing in, write a book where every sentence is one cliche compounding onto the next. Moving forward, ground is shifting. You don't get to be my age without navigating all kinds of transitions. Some of you anticipated, okay. Maybe you picked up this book because you were going through a moment of transition yourself. Yeah, I'm in an airport at Hudson News, and I'm on Xanax, and I've had 9 martinis, and I picked up this book by accident, and now I regret it. Maybe you picked it up because someone you love is going through a transition. Either way, such a time is coming. No matter who you are, man or woman, young or old, change is inevitable. Where does she come up with these brilliant insights? Growth, inner work. I've organized this book around transitions that were formative in my life. I, me, mine, my, I. I write about leaving home for college. Wow, how interesting. Becoming a parent. I've never heard of that. Losing one of my best friends to cancer. Ending my marriage. Leaving the Gates Foundation to start a new chapter in my philanthropy, giving away my ex-husband's money. What a feminist concept. Forming rituals and traditions with my family and friends. Turning 60. Well, time is running out, Melinda. It must be really fun to have so much money that you can literally do anything, but there's that one thing you can't do is prevent the fucking Grim Reaper from coming to your door. I recognize there is much unique about my circumstances. I've benefited from a tremendous amount of privilege. There's no question that has insulated me from some of life's hardships. Still, I believe many aspects of the human experience are universal. Yeah, like leaving a foundation named after you, or divorcing a billionaire, or having one of your daughters married into the richest family in Egypt, which has basically been feudalism for a long time. Often, when I found myself in unfamiliar waters, I have our yacht is in Fiji. I've never been to Fiji. Unfamiliar waters. I've reached across time and space to find something to buoy. Okay, is she getting into what psychedelic drug use of billionaires here? One of the people whose work I have turned to is a poet named David White. She's going to quote this pleasant poem. The first hardly noticed moment in which you wake. Okay. That poem has been on my mind a lot lately. The real work starts the next day with transitions. The next day, sounds like Jeff Bezos's famous day one. Every day is day one here at Amazon. Yeah, I know it's a Wednesday and you've been working here for 3 years. No, this is day one. You're going to work twice as hard as you did yesterday, and that was twice as hard as you did the day before that. Graduation confetti has been swept up, or the wedding favors have been handed out. or the movers have departed, leaving you in a sea of cardboard boxes, is when transition truly begins. A sea of cardboard boxes certainly describes moving out of $1 billion house. Or did she give up all her material possessions? No. David White poem ends in a question. What shape waits in the seed of you to grow and spread its branches? As I approached my 60th birthday, I decided to begin filling the white pages before me with tributes to the people and ideas that have helped me through the transitions that have defined me. That was the introduction to this masterpiece. Find your small wave. As a fourth grader in Dallas, Texas, okay, that explains a lot because Dallas, Texas is a horrible shithole. It's basically paved over concrete brutalism with a bunch of gas stations baked by the sun in Texas. A lesson from my father stayed with me all my life. Okay, so she's going to Catholic school and she gets busted for having fingernail polish. And again, the priests were conducting a spot check. They wanted to lay our hands out flat so they could inspect our fingernails for polish, a dress code violation. She was glad that the translucent pink polish she was wearing was so light it was almost invisible. I wasn't the kind of student who got in trouble at school, and I had no desire to be singled out. I don't remember why I happened to have nail polish on that day, but my guess, ironically enough, even though I don't remember, I'll just make something up, is that I put it on to look nice for church, which in Dallas was a real stressing up occasion. Whatever the reason I'd polish my nails, I'm sure it never occurred to me I did that I was breaking school rules. This was no intentional act of rebellion. Nothing you have ever fucking done was an intentional act of rebellion. Jesus. In a heartbeat, I was pulled out of my chair and dispatched to the principal's office. They were going to demand that a parent come to school. And, of course, her mom is busy. She never says doing what, but her dad was incensed, in italics, when he heard what had happened. He couldn't believe the priest had embarrassed the girls in my class that way and then been so disrespectful of our mothers, making them come, from shopping at Saks Fifth Avenue to all the way back to Dallas to, deal with this problem. It was the priests who were in the wrong, said my dad. Her parents are deeply devout Catholics. My parents were always willing to speak out against injustices that they saw at our local parish. I'd love to know the demographics of the private Catholic girls' school that she went to. How many black girls were there, Asian girls, or Jewish people even? I might have expected my dad to think a fuss about nail polish was some silly feminine thing he didn't need to get involved in. That's exactly why his reaction was so meaningful. He made clear to me that the way priests treated my mother and me that day was intended to diminish us, to make us feel small and unserious, to reinforce a power hierarchy that placed us at the bottom, kind of like the whole concept of the Catholic Church that your parents attend and make you go to. My father refused to see my mother and me that way, and in doing so, he taught me not to see myself that way either. My dad, Ray French, is a retired aerospace engineer who worked on the Apollo project, an accomplishment that thrilled and surprised his parents. His dad, my grandfather, owned a machine shop that just about kept the family afloat. They knew they had a brilliant son in Ray. He was already winning automotive designs in high school, winning award-winning automotive designs. They didn't have the money to send him to college, and as family lore goes, his parents put him on the train to Atlanta to attend Georgia Tech with only his paper route earnings and a jar of peanut butter to his name. Okay, so nonfiction books or biographies are not fact checked. They are mostly works of fiction, and my my dad went off to Georgia Tech with a jar of peanut butter and a rope belt and barefoot, and then he moved to Dallas and became a brilliant engineer. Okay, fair enough. He managed to earn a scholarship to Stanford with got a master's degree in mechanical engineering. Okay, he's no dummy, and apparently did come from a normal, household that was not rich. So good for Grandpa, or good for her dad, I should say. Melinda's mom, Elaine, never had the opportunity to attend college. She and my dad met young and married young, and she supported him through graduate school with her job at a bottled water company before stepping out of the workforce to stay home with the 4 of us kids, whose daily needs she attended to largely by herself. Okay, so not a feminist story when you're just the housewife taking care of the kids and doing everything. And is it a feminist story when you're the wife of a billionaire and you have an army of servants and cleaning ladies and childcare and educators? And it's like, oh, kids, Malcolm Gladwell has been hired to come over for the afternoon and give a lecture. Like, that's not a normal upbringing for your kids, Melinda, nor is it a feminist upbringing in any sense of the word. By the way, I've heard many stories about Melinda specifically being an asshole toward the hired help. A lot of that comes from people I knew that worked construction on their $1 billion mansion. And she would be like, this Italian marble is the wrong color. Rip it out and get the right stuff, you assholes. And they'd be like, Melinda, that's going to cost $10 million. And she's like, just do it, you sick freaks. It wasn't that my dad wasn't involved. He pitched in when and where he could. Another generality, no specifics. But he had a huge job and worked constantly, often sleeping on his office couch. For all I knew, that was how every family operated. The TV shows I watched as a young girl, shows like Little House on the Prairie and Leave It to Beaver, all reinforced that model. Wow, she's really watching some radical TV shows. Like, there were some really good, wild TV shows on during the era between Leave It to Beaver and Little House on the Prairie. But no, those were her shows. The men had lives and careers, took them out into the big wide world. The women were first and foremost mothers. Most families I saw in real life in her all-white racist suburb of Dallas had a similar setup. Dallas in the 70s, I didn't know a lot of women who had careers or worked outside the home at all, unless you counted my teachers at school, many of whom were nuns, ! Oh, thank Jesus, the Lord, the free sample of Melinda Gates the next day, transitions, change, and moving forward is over. And we can be thankful that I don't have to read the part about her divorce and all these transitions that are so unique to her, and how generous she is, and how she rejected her mom's role as a homemaker and became this super mom, wife of a billionaire who insisted on doing all the dishes and doing all the laundry so that she could set an example for her not at all privileged kids. Okay, this has been Doomed Planet. Wow, I barely squeezed out an episode this month. It's the 30th. Okay. Be safe out there. Goodbye.
You had a number of meetings with Jeffrey Epstein, who, when you met him 10 years ago, he was convicted of soliciting prostitution from minors. What did you know about him when you were meeting with him, as you've said yourself, in the hopes of raising money?
I had dinners with him.